ball he got, funky nigger he got, Coca-Cola, he said, I know you.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Ha ha ha. I didn't get you in there this time, Steve.
Oh, hey.
How the heck are you guys?
That was a nice intro. I like that.
Yeah. We'll have to see what the guest thinks about it, especially after I found a video of him singing at Endless Foot Drag. So we've got 6 to 12 inches of snow coming starting around 8 o'clock tonight. We had no school today. No school today. And it's been freezing rain and pretty much out of snow. And we're waiting for the big dump now. How about you, Deweese? You look like you had some tornadoes.
Lots of tornadoes, bad weather, wind, lots of rain.
Yeah.
The yard is flooded. Yeah. But we lucked out. It's past now, and we did find no damage here. So
Kyle O just shoved a dead baby gopher in my face.
I was just wondering what the heck that was. So
yeah, that's my life.
So you're down at Kyle O's, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to everybody that's in the chat and watching on regular YouTube. Montana Permanent Reset is in here. Scott Starbeck, hey Scott. Angela and Tony, Aaron I, Kelby Cox, Copay J finally made it back. Mad Sloper's here. Sean Hartman, and say hi to Jackie for me. And let's see, Randy Milstead, my husband Eric, Paramom Linda. Let's see, who else do we have maybe in here? Oh, Joe Sibley's in here. And Travis DuPont, Bill H. said he just got done with work. Thank you, sir, for joining us while you're eating dinner. And the rest of us gang here. So we got a pretty cool guest. Holy cow, what the heck is this? Hi, Kyle.
Always looks so funny on the internet.
How the
It's
heck are
funny to be
you?
on the other side of the camera, huh?
I'm trying to give Steve bunny ears, but he wouldn't nose.
Bunny ears with
You
a
were,
dead
you were
gopher?
giving me bunny ears in the wrong spot. That's why.
So let's say weather reports. Michigan, snowy and buried and everybody's sad. Mississippi, humid and wet.
Yep.
Okay.
Windy.
We're perfectly mixed up in the middle here. It's
Yep.
humid and cold. No snow.
Humid and cold. That's about right.
We have a fresh supply of dead gophers if anybody's looking.
No thanks.
Baby gophers.
Well, let's
We're
join
all
our
moving
guest into this party quick here too before we forget about him. Martin.
Hey.
How
Thank
the
you
heck
for
are you?
thank you for the intro. That was very nice of you, man.
You're welcome.
And
So
th-
go ahead.
and thanks for having me, by the way. I appreciate it.
Martin, where are you from?
I have a bit of a background. So I grew up an Army brat, and my mother's German, and my father met my mother in Germany. And so they had a couple of kids. And so we have literally moved. Gosh, I can't tell you how many times we've moved from one side of the country to the other, to out of country and Hawaii, and doesn't matter, wherever the Army, sent my father, that's where we went. And then I turned around and joined myself. So did a lot of running around there too.
All right. So you and I met, we were just discussing that before the show. We didn't really know that we crossed paths down at Oshkosh at EAA this last summer and on the ultralight tower. And then officially we met at Fright Fest.
Right.
So,
Right.
yep. And met a bunch of other people down there hoping to get on the show at some point also. So
I met Martin last year at EFD when I was brand spanking new, and it was super cool because he was an air boss then, and I was even scared to tell him how many flights I even had because it was like, man, I shouldn't even be here. But he was so cool because like he just talked to me and gave me everything direct and super welcoming, and I already felt like I was at Disney World going to my first big fly-in, so that was super cool meeting Martin.
I thought I met you the year before, Steve.
Yep. It was the year before, and you were one of the first people that kind of talked to me there and gave me the logistics and gave me the rundown, and yeah, it was super nice.
Gotcha. So let me throw this out there real fast. One huge shout out to a gentleman that got me kind of started in this business, if you will, of trying to help others. He's passed away since then, and I just found out from John Black, who throws the Beach Blast every year. The last year that I went, his name was Lance Sumnerford, and I found out that he died about 3 years ago. But he was an air boss, and I want to say the second to the last Beach Blast that I was at, I could not do a reverse to save my life, and I had already crashed 2 days prior. And Jade, you have the photos. I had blown up on the beach. I mean, I came in hot, and I just blew up my whole paramotor. And the next day I got back in the saddle and started flying. And then it was time to launch for the evening session. And I was trying to do a reverse, which I don't have practice in doing. But that guy, Lance, he sat there and watched me while there's about 100 people standing right behind him the whole time. And it's very intimidating when you're launching and they might be 30 feet from you and you're blowing launch after launch after launch. And this gentleman by the name of Lance, he came up and he'd whisper in my helmet and tell me what I was doing wrong. And I never forgot that. And man, I just want to throw, that is the type of air boss that I wanted to become. And then Michael Holliday asked me one time if I would do some air bossing at Endless his first year when he got it from Britton Shaw out of Fort Smith. And so that's how I wound up here. There's no official reason why I didn't ask to do this job. And sometimes I don't want to do this job, but if I can help somebody and talk to them, that's what an air boss should do. Help them in any way, shape or form, or tell them where they're wrong or what they shouldn't do, within respect. I think you're going to get something accomplished if you bring forth some respect to somebody who might not know the rules of the lay of the land on how a fly-in operates.
So how do you get to be an air marshal?
Well, you don't. You just get asked, basically.
Because nobody wants to do it.
In a way, I heard Jade say something a couple of weeks ago, and I have always kind of been like, nah, I don't want to be labeled as that, even though I know it comes with that label, and you know what I'm talking about, the air D. I always tried to be opposite of that because it's not fun chasing cats around, basically, especially once it's launch time and there's one launch after the other. Next thing you know, the sky is full and everybody's just flying around doing their thing. And one of the things that we always ask at Endless Foot Drag is to launch and leave. That's kind of the only rules that we ask regularly of any pilot that goes up in the air. Launch and leave. And there's a reason, because I remember the first time I went to a fly-in, I was so intimidated, kind of like everybody's been intimidated while going to a fly-in. And I didn't know where to set up without messing somebody else up. And I was on a quad at the time. And I laid my wing out and precisely did all the lines. And next thing you know, I blew the launch. But I blew the launch so far away from everybody else that I could reset myself and then reset myself. And that's something why I think going to fly-ins, gosh, I'm all over the place, I know. But when you go to a fly-in and you've never been to one, talking to people like Steve did, or anybody else for that matter, that goes around and networks themselves, is what I would recommend and or suggest for any and all new pilots, or even pilots that don't know the area and might have had hundreds of flights or 1,000 flights. Find out from the local pilots that run that area where to go, what's something unique to see. But the main thing is just getting up in the air and going somewhere else so that any and everybody else that wants to launch can do that. Long-winded.
That was perfect. My first dealing with an air boss was at Bad Apples 2 years ago. And I was very thankful that they were out there because I was new pilot and scared to death of going out there. And I'm like, I sat there for a while and I'm like, I watched how the air bosses were directing and telling them that when they could go. And I'm like, okay, I can handle that. And of course, trying to remember who my first air boss actually was. And then they were called the air Ds at Moonshiners. That's where that one came from. So
you can't always say it. I have a hard time saying it. They need to change that name.
Yeah. So Scott Starbuck's in the chat. You know him, obviously, and he wants to know, Martin, who is your IT guy helping you with your live feed tonight?
I got 3 people on my team, me, myself, and I, and hopefully they're doing a good job.
Yep, we
So far, so good.
worked on it a little before the show. And then Sean Hartman wants to know, did Martin dye his eyebrows for the interview?
He's going to be the
No,
peace
but I should plug
negotiator
some
for
of
the
these
Russian-Ukraine
Gorbachevs.
war because the Russians love him because his eyebrows remind him of Leonid Brezhnev.
You know that guy. I love that guy. Have you ever seen his eyebrows? They're just bushes. They were bushes. I think that was Stalin or maybe Lenin. I don't know.
And Martin, I don't know
No,
if you saw
Leonid
what Kyle
Brezhnev.
typed.
It was in the 70s. You're probably too young to remember.
Did you see what Kyle typed in here?
I'm a little.
And Bill H, I think I saw in the chat say he met you last
Thanks,
year
Kyle.
or the year before. So.
Well, I love
explain-
meeting people. That's some of the reason why I like being the air boss. And I have to throw a huge shout out to Scott Starbeck and Sean Hartman, who assisted me this year, and Scott in the past. These guys are invaluable, if you ask me, because we're not there to push our agenda on you. We're just asking you to kind of follow some rules about air etiquette, if you will, or launching and landing. We haven't even gone over any of that, but those guys are instrumental in helping, just like on some of the places, the moonshiners and bad apples that you've gone to. I wish that there was a way of getting together as a whole and learning from one another and networking with each other to help each other out at fly-ins, so everybody's on the same sheet. Because you can go to some fly-ins and you won't find a nair soul in sight. Nobody wants to follow any rules. And I've gone to more fly-ins without rules than I have fly-ins with rules. And I actually prefer, obviously, a little bit of an organized event. And whether I'm participating or not is regardless. I just like to feel like when it's time to launch that you don't have a bunch of cowboys up in the air and they're doing their thing and scaring everybody and intimidating those who have never launched or landed. Because like I said, I think we've all been in that situation where we don't know when we should come down. We don't know where we should take off from. But these are all things that if you network with the air bosses, they'll tell you. They'll just say, yeah, go set up over there. And then that way you're out of sight, out of mind. And you're not in the way of those that can just take their wing, chuck it out in the background, and next thing you know, they're hooked and book it real fast. And I can do both. I prefer to kind of set up my lines a little different, but I've learned so much. And back to the thing about meeting people. That is the fun of going to these fly-ins, is being able to meet people from all walks of life. And if you can help them, you just kind of gained a friend or, a little bit of trust within the community. And then it's funny how they come back and say, hey, I appreciate you helping me. Or, who did you say I should go to for this, that? Because this community is, what is that all about?
You just said you did it for me. So I was like, hand raise. I just did it with a little bit more flair.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, so that I wouldn't have met you or anybody else for that matter had I not been asked to do this position by Michael Holliday. And I'm kind of thankful 3/4 of the time for being an air boss at Endless. And the other part is not so fun when you have to kind of ask people, and if you have to repetitively say the same thing over and over again, then it gets a little like, okay, now you're pushing my buttons. And why? What do you gain from trying to push my buttons? And I did, because the guy just told me I like screwing with you. I was like, oh, okay. Wasn't too bright if you ask me, but oh well.
Well, Angela's got a good question. Having not gone to a fly-in yet, can you tell her about an air boss? Is there more than one, and are they certified?
None of us are certified. We are all just kind of that ingrained in the paramotor system, where we kind of probably love just helping people out and keeping some sort of order so that there's safety around us at all times. And we have a good time if you're having a good time, and if you feel safe, then you'll want to come back, because realistically, fly-ins are fun to go, and even it's the time when you're not flying that you're networking with people and talking and having fun. And what was the first part of that question?
Just tell her about an air boss, and is there more than one?
Oh, so an air boss more or less just tries to keep the peace on the LZ, and we are there to help you if you need help. A lot of people, I encourage them to wave me off if they blow a launch. Wave me off. I won't come help you. If you want help, or sometimes you might even say, you know, I'm good, and you're all pissed off already because you blew your launch. But this might be an opportunity, if you blow your launch, to let somebody else who has experience in setting up a wing, he might be able to help you. And then it gives you some time and some opportunity to kind of think within what you did wrong that might have messed up your launch. And those air bosses, the ones that are patient, and I know Sean and Scott are like that. That's just kind of what's expected. And when you come to Endless and probably a lot of other fly-ins. Now, if they're stacked behind each other, then that becomes a problem, and then you set up in the wrong place. You shouldn't have set up in a place or thrown your wing and got your gear all set up, and then now you're going to sort out each line. And I've seen it happen half a dozen times where somebody will throw their wing out there, and then they'll go get their paramotor, and you'll see them in 20 minutes. Well, by then, if you do that at Endless, we're going to gather up your wing and we're going to set it off to the side for you, because now you're messing everybody up.
Martin had to get on my butt because I had all my stuff laid out, but then I took 20 minutes to go change into my dress, and he's like, dude, you can't do that. You got to go. You got to come dressed for the occasion and go.
Have your heels ready.
Yeah, you got to have your dress already on. So Kyle Oakley wants to know, what's the best technique when dealing with a pissed off contestant?
Kyle wants to know, what is the best technique when dealing with pissed off contestants or other pilots?
Other pilots.
Participants. Best customer.
Pilots.
I don't know how to say it. I picked a word. Random noun selection.
I say get out of their way, first of all. You know, let them set up. But if they're already screwing up, you might have to kind of intervene and kind of ask them, you know, or almost tell them sometimes. I wouldn't do that with Kyle. I've already seen him launch enough to know that boy knows what he's doing for sure.
Yeah, but there's other personalities, like people who get pissed off when you're trying to hold them accountable because they're flying over campers or doing stuff they're not supposed to in the LZ. Have you had much experience having to deal with those types of people?
I think there's an inside coup going on. Yes, there's a problem with people like that. They're all over the place. You're just getting under my skin when you do that.
So how do you handle it though? I mean,
so I try to do it the gentleman-like way, and I give them the stink eye as they're doing it. And okay, here's something that I tried to invoke that I learned when watching videos. I wanted to put numbers on everybody's paramotor. It's a sticker on the front and back of the cage, lower left portion with a number. That number is assigned to you when you come into the fly-in. That way we know.
You put a scarlet A on me.
I did?
Yeah.
Just numbers. And that way we know who we're dealing with, because then we can go one-on-one. And typically we always have a safety meeting every evening prior to the evening launch. We put out the same rules pretty much every day about what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And there's those that like to push the envelope, and I almost sometimes have an understanding, because we all are so used to flying in our own territory. We know our own ability, and sometimes we just flat out forget that we shouldn't be doing that. So a lot of times, depending on who the person is, if it's their first time doing it, I will figure out who they are by wing color, or if I know them. And that's another reason why, as an air boss, you get to know these people, because then Scott will remember, or Sean will remember who he helped. And then we'll go to them and say, hey, could you do me a favor next time when you're out there flying around? please don't fly over the campers. Because I had, I've seen it. It happens all the time. It does. And the only thing we can do is try to maintain the peace by going to them, asking them politely not to do it, and hopefully they'll adhere, because no one has ever been kicked off the property at Endless Foot Drag. And I hope it doesn't ever happen. But if somebody wants to break the rules and they're that blatant, maybe we'll just have to make an example of them one day.
So with that being said, how would you deal with Matt Minyard?
Let's keep names out of your mouth.
So I've dealt with Matt a couple of times, and I got nothing but mad props for his skills and ability as a pilot. But he does know how to push some envelopes, and since he seems to be a separate zip code, sometimes you got to kind of work with him. And I think, I don't know, sometimes it's hard because he is that's a tough question. You know what you're doing over there in Louisiana, you guys, for crying out loud. Oh, there's more than a Matt Minyard. There seems to be a few from Louisiana that like to push the envelope. But yeah, that's all you can do is ask them. That's all you can do. Huh?
Oh, I said it's the Southern guys. Those are the troublemakers. Us
Exactly.
Yankees don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Or I think it's a lot of Southern guys. You've always done good, Kyle.
Thank you. I had no idea.
So
I never
Martin,
know. Sometimes I'm just in trouble, and I never figure out exactly how all that got started.
You know too many eyes are on you. That's why. Everywhere you go, somebody's watching you. You know that.
I used to be just an anonymous face in the crowd. What happened?
And filming you. He's got all sorts of adult films made that he doesn't even know about because people are filming and watching.
You got
Right.
That's what happened.
Hey, Jade, you were going to ask something, but throw that camera back on Kyle. I wanted to say something to Kyle that I don't remember. Do you remember at Endless Foot Drag in Fort Smith the first time you went?
Yeah.
I remember watching
that's
you.
when we met.
Yeah, I remember watching you, and you hadn't begun your career of making videos. And I always remember you were there was a bunch of guys. You remember that guy that set his scout down? He set his wing right on a tarp. Doggone it. Shane Denherder. He came in, He took off from a tarp, and then he landed his tarp right back on the tarp after a flight. And I remember all those guys were huddled around, and I remember you kind of like looking on the outside, and now it's just funny how the tables have changed where everybody's looking at you. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of cool to me. That's how far you go back too. You know?
Apologies for anyone looking at me.
You're not too rough. You're not too rough.
No, I've had a haircut recently.
Glad to see that. Glad to see that.
It's no longer getting in my gumbo.
as long as it's not in the boudin.
Good call.
Oh, P.S. I just got a new box to mail you some boudin.
Yes.
So it'll be on the way shortly.
Coming to
We had
Wisconsin.
boudin last night, and I put gumbo in the boudin. The first time I did that, it was amazing.
Was it good?
Sounds
How'd
amazing.
you put it in the boudin?
Well, instead of rice, I used boudin.
It's got rice in it though, right?
Yeah, it's mostly rice.
Boudin.
But it was like boudin instead of rice. It was just boudin and gumbo. I may have invented a new thing.
You may have.
Nothing wrong with that. That's good food right there.
Paramotor pilot fuel.
That's right.
All right. So I had going back to new people. So if you have a new pilot, can you tell the walking out there on the sidelines? Can you tell? I mean, let's say the LZ isn't real busy right now, and there's a new person kind of like nervous, and they go set up their stuff. Are you willing to go out there and give them some words of encouragement and everything like that? You're not gonna, scare them off and make them go down in a back corner or anything like that?
Well, absolutely. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to kind of make them feel welcome for one, but I want to know like what experience they have prior to just going and setting up, because if it looks like they're just going to take a long time to set up, and we know that, there's going to be people coming and going, and next thing you know, their wing is going to get tacoed all over the place, I'll offer them a ride, because thanks to the city of Fredonia in Kansas, we are provided as air bosses, we are provided with golf carts. And so we're able to kind of take people to a further location to launch. And they're always, as a matter of fact, that's kind of typically what we do as air bosses as well. Once you land out somewhere, it doesn't matter where you land out. If you're within the county or driving distance, we come and get you with our vehicles, or we come and get you with our golf carts, or we'll take you somewhere and give you that time alone off, and that way you can kind of feel a little more at ease when it's time to take off. Because again, I think everybody here always will remember what it was like. I hope everybody realizes that everybody is different and we all operate different. And when it's time to launch, we need some time to kind of think about what it is that we have to do. And we know some eyes are on us, and sometimes it's best to just go a little further out and then, set your plan up and make sure that your runway is where it needs to be before you launch. But helping people is something that I bet every air boss that really enjoys his job does. He's there to help. We're here to serve, in Eric Farwell's famous words. He's here to serve. Same with what we do at Endless Foot Drag. We're here to help people, enjoy their time while they're there.
All right. And just like Travis had said a little bit earlier, he said his wife purposely landed way out at EFD, and Martin drove his golf cart out to check on her. So,
and if, we post phone numbers on my camper of any and everybody that's kind of a part of the staff at Endless. And a lot of people I see taking pictures, and then you can call anybody at Endless. I feel like I'm doing a infomercial on Endless, but it's for all fly-ins. I'm sure they're all like that. I wish I knew more people at other fly-ins that do this job, so we could all get on the same sheet. What is that one in Palm Beach, Florida? I heard that they have signs and they'll tell you only one launch at a time. Did somebody say that earlier? Is that what they do at other fly-ins?
No, not that I am aware of.
No, I've heard in some cases where if you get the red, you stop and you wait, and then if you get the green, then you're able to take off, because they're limited on LZ.
That was Oshkosh. That's what I had to do.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's really not a bad idea, though. You can actually visibly see those signs.
So Jackie Hartman wants to know, has Martin ever considered modeling? And I only ask this question because I have the same question, because he is a beautiful man. And yeah, that was like the best part about EFD, is because he had given me a ride once when I landed out, and it just made my
making him blush.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're supposed to talk about safety. You need to get on with that.
Man.
We warned you.
Well, not really.
Kind of, sort of. It's okay. It's okay.
All right, he did away with my question. Here it is, about the flight pattern. Tony wants to know, don't you guys have a flight pattern before you fly, or do you just go up and wing it?
Wing it. We have so much land out there. I guess Tony has never been to Endless, and you're welcome to come out anytime, or look up the Fredonia Airport in Fredonia, Kansas, and you'll see that this is I think it's a 2,500 feet sliver of cement. It's a landing. It's an airport big enough to facilitate a certain size aircraft. And so on both sides of that cement landing strip, if you will, I'm not calling it right, I'm getting a little nervous, but on both sides you can take off from. And there's so much land out there that we don't require a pattern. I almost don't even think that would be worth our time to try to initiate something like that, because there's just a lot of land out there. But it's a good question.
And I could second that. When I was brand new, I was super afraid to do it and whatnot. But if you just let the majority of people get up and get out, like in Martin's, he always reiterates, like, once you launch, get the hell out of the area. Eventually things thin out, and it even got comfortable for me. I've been in some situations where I had to taxi around some people, but it's really not a big deal as long as people aren't flying and scooting around where you're trying to land. Like, it's actually pretty easy, even out of big flying.
I got something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Kyle's got something to add.
I got something to add. You know, coming
Talk to
from
me.
the pre-flight, you know, we do the gaggle flying. Sometimes I was in South America one time, and there maybe was 50 pilots in a thermal together, you know, and we're all going the same way at about the same speed. So at a fly-in, you know, when you're taking off and landing, you know, aside from the acceleration or after the flare, everybody's moving about the same pace in the same direction if there's wind blowing. So that really limits a lot of the like collision avoidance that you would need with different speed aircraft. It's when you get the Yahoo that's buzzing in and out and being a goofus out there where that's happening. That's where you get a problem. Just like when you're in the gaggle and you got some butthole that just blasts right through the middle of the thermal, you know, hey, butthole, get out of the way. And it messes it up for everybody else that, you know, you're all kind of the same pattern, same direction, whether you're coming in or leaving, it's in the wind, typically speaking. So that really does help, the fact that we're all on similar speed craft and nobody's really overtaking anyone.
Now, do the peers, once you guys get together and land, do you guys pull that guy or go up to him afterwards and say, dude, what was that? You know?
No, we usually landed, you know, 50 miles away. Everybody's everywhere else. I mean, you might know some people in the gaggle. This is at a place where people are coming from all over the world. You know, you might have them speak their language. You don't even know if they're experienced or new. It could be, you just got to watch out. That's just something about being a pilot, see and avoid. You know, you look before you go. And if everybody's looking before they move, it rarely happens. And there's rarely an incident if that's being followed by everyone. That's why it's so important.
There's always going to be one in a bunch. It's going to mess it up.
Depending on what state you live in.
Martin comes in. That's where Martin comes in. If he sees somebody afflicting that pattern, you know, just the flow of things, that's where he shakes his finger and pulls out the old bull or the laser pointer or whatever fancy gun they give you, you know. That's right. That's right. But I just wanted to mention that the fact that we're all moving the same speed and basically the same direction out of an LZ, that really helps. It really does.
So my mom is
always that guy, right? That's why we need people like Martin there.
Yeah.
So my mom has stepped up and she's asking a question. Which fly-ins have air bosses?
I want to say I know of only 3, and you mentioned 2 of them, Jade. Unless someone else can have some input, I only know of 3 that have actual, you know, air bosses.
Okay, and then Angela's asking, do you know if Salton Sea or Flying Circus have air bosses?
I can almost guarantee Circus doesn't have it, just because of all the war stories. And I've never been to Salton Sea, and I don't think I've ever heard the word mentioned there either.
Okay.
Hold on, because I thought Circus didn't have any meetings or anything.
I edited the Flying Circus video today. This is from last February. And so I edited it, and I was mentioned in the safety meeting. We all had a meeting that morning, and we gathered up, and I thought it was going to be this big briefing. And a guy says, don't do anything stupid. And he just dropped the mic, and that was it. That was the safety brief. Don't do anything stupid. And
I didn't.
You
know there was a
can't
meeting.
mess that up. That says it all right there. You know.
I didn't even know
Yep.
there was one.
Maybe we ought to incorporate that one of these days. Just don't do anything stupid. But this is the paramotor community. There's always a rogue someone that wants to push the envelope. That's another thing. We got to hone in on this subject. Once people get up and go and launch, and you know, those that like to loiter when they're flying because they have that natural desire to be seen. But if there's 150 guys up and girls up in the air, nobody cares what you're doing. Nobody knows it's you to begin with. So why are you flying around screwing up everybody's air? It's kind of one of those personal opinions that I have about how that works. People intentionally go up and then they just do their thing knowing they shouldn't be doing that, because it's been said every safety meeting, go launch and go away. But somebody has to do their laps around, and you know, I guess in their mind they're saying, look at me, and nobody cares realistically because we all do it. So I hope that touches someone's heartstrings right there. I don't know who. Because if you've seen accidents, and I know everyone has, it's not fun to remember what I've seen in some cases. It's not fun to see somebody's bones sticking out of their body or blood coming out of their face and then withering in pain and doing a lot of self-inflicted accidents that go on with this sport. And this is a lot of things that can be avoided within this sport if they would just launch and go somewhere else and fly. But I don't know how many more times I can say it with it sticking.
So do you think it's a good idea to have a pilot briefing once or every day? Every day. And I wish sometime so I have a little bit of a military background in me, and sometimes I feel like some sort of organization to me gets your point across, and even if it has to be reiterated constantly per meeting, I think that maybe one of those times it'll stick. Don't fly over the campers. Don't fly over the campers. You know, you can say it in different languages and they're still going to do it sometimes. Well, I was coming over and then the wind changed and then I saw this person and he wanted to photo me. And I mean, you hear it all. And it's like, you want to say, come on, man, you know, you can do that at your home field or somewhere where it's safer. But when you're doing it and we ask you out aloud, don't do that, and you do it anyways, again, it's sometimes a little frustrating, and that's maybe where some people get the definition of somebody being an Air D, because some people they don't have patience for that after a while. And I luckily have the patience. I don't want to make enemies. I want to help people. That's what we're there for. And to have a good time. And that way, there's nothing that goes on that will shut down a fly-in faster than when somebody perishes. And that happens too, unfortunately. And, you know, it's something you can't scratch out of your eyes. I've never, knock on wood, seen somebody die in person. But it would be pretty rough to remember seeing that person coming down, you know, and then have to call somebody to go get an ambulance and then they're dead. That's just horrible. Horrible. Yeah, there's enough of that goes on in this sport. We don't need any more.
Right.
Cool.
So one of the things that I kind of wanted to bring up about, I guess, when it's time to set up and you've got your location and you've got what you're going to do, and a lot of people don't do this because we're not used to flying with a lot of people, but you know, just looking over your shoulder both times, because there'll be some people, they should know better, but they'll come in over on top of you and come in for a landing, because Lord knows they don't need to walk any more than they should. And so they'll actually land on top. And I've seen a wing come up and then someone clipped with their legs as the wing was coming up, they were coming down and they were already fully committed, motor off. And that's just another thing that could be avoided. So a lot of times when people are beginning their launch, if you just look after you've done your motor warm up, if you look over each one of your shoulders, or if you can, just one shoulder is fine. Make sure that nobody's coming in, and then decide to take off. It's a big help, and it could avoid an accident in that area as well. I don't think that I really talk about that at Endless too often.
That's why my first couple of landings at like fly-ins, I would always land at the edge of the field so I'd stay out of people's way, because I just knew I didn't have the precision or whatever. I just wanted the margin. But I just gotta say, everywhere is within walking distance if you have the time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And why people don't take advantage of that, I don't know. You know, spot landing is something that I love to do, even when I'm not, like when I fly by myself, which is probably more than 3/4 of the time. I fly by myself, and I like to practice touch and goes or spot landings, because that will one day pay off if you ever have a motor out or something goes wrong and you have to land. Knowing how to land is just as important. And so Michael Holliday, before he passed away, he was not too much of a stickler. He wanted to hold the standard as a, you know, for most people, pilots coming in being a PPG 2 or above. And he didn't really push that, and I'm kind of glad he didn't, because then it would kind of limit a lot of people from coming in. But practicing spot landing I think it's probably the single most important versus launching. Launching, I think, I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but landing for me was the hardest one that I had trouble with. And now that I've got it pretty much down packed, I just prefer coming in, landing, and taking back off again. Or that's fun to me. But when you need that exercise, and I have to throw a shout out, Matt Miller has been a huge influence in my life as far as mentoring me on how to operate. And I just reached out to him one day because he flew the same wing and the same motor as I had. And I thought, you know, what better person would there be than to message somebody who flies the same thing? And so I reached out to him. We've become friends, and he is actual licensed pilot to begin with. So he's taught me more than, man, I suggest that for everybody. Learn how to talk to people and find somebody to talk to and ask those questions that you might not be able to find in that PPG Bible, or you might not know even where to resource it. Reach out to somebody, get out of that shell that you're in, and talk to somebody who can help you. Airboss is there for you when you're at the foot drag or when you're at Moonshiners, but reach out to people and start talking to them and ask them questions on weather. And because I'm not a good reader by trade, I'm just not good at reading and understanding what it is that I read all the time. So I just ask questions, and that's how you get a lot of information on how to do what we do for fun, because this is such a life and death sport. And we make it look like it's all hunky-dory sometimes, or we don't care, or look at me, but it is such a life and death sport that it's important to know what to do if you're a couple 100 feet up in the air and something goes wrong. What are you going to do? You know, you have to
agree with you. I do agree with you about the spot landing practice, because I have bad aim. Just look at my bathroom.
You have what?
Never mind.
Oh, is that another improv? Okay. Something about Spot Angel.
No. Steve.
What? You're paying me top dollar for this. Come on.
Look in the chat, they're talking about this Mr. Gizzard. I thought they were talking about a person. Turns out it's a dog that got hit by a mail truck.
It's Kyle's dog.
Yes. Kyle, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So Tony's asking, what equipment do you fly?
I see. Okay. Yeah, it's Gizmo.
Tony, there's only one piece of equipment. You got it. You see that? Nirvana.
Oh,
I'm a Nirvana guy. We're a little snothead. We're snotty. That's what some people say. We're not
wait,
at
Steve,
all. It's
aren't
just
you Nirvana?
I'm a Nirvana guy too. Oh, they make the best clothes.
Nirvana
Yeah.
shirt guy.
Like people can argue gear all day long, every frame, wing, whatever. Nobody makes better clothes than Nirvana. Are you disagreeing with me or?
No, just choking
Oh,
on
okay.
a bug.
But
What
I'm
did he
coming halfway in because I just got a new Dudek wing, but I ordered it in Nirvana colors, so I can at least like say I sort of fly Nirvana.
good for you. What colors? All orange and
It's
orange
the
and
Nirvana
black?
colors, orange, blue, and white.
Orange, blue, and okay, that's a rodeo. Or where does that one with the red line or something like that? I don't know. There's so many things, but yeah.
Are you rocking an F-Light now?
No, I flew Shannon's Atom 80 at Fredonia once. Boy, that you got to not weigh as much as I do to try an Atom 80 because that thing has
a Nirvana F-Light. Is that what you're rocking now?
no, just the instinct. Just the
Oh
instinct.
man, I may be
Yeah.
loaded, but I ain't rich. Ugh.
Well, I don't know what to say about that. It's you get what you pay for, but everybody, we all know the deal about that. An Atom 80.
$1,000 for a 90-pound motor and frame.
I wish I could fly an Atom 80 regularly. Those things it doesn't cost any fuel.
This guy flies an Atom 80 all the time.
You do, Kyle?
I just watched him take off on a 15-meter speed wing on an Atom 80.
Really?
Zero conditions, right?
That's impressive.
No wind. It was no wind. You had to run a long time, but
I've
you
done
got
it. I did have to run.
Huh. I can't remember the name of the wing on the Atom 80. Rick Spitter would know that, but I'm too fat for an Atom 80. I just can't do it no more. I can't.
No, it
Even
was
with a
gusty
lot of
beat
wind, I
conditions.
flew.
It was like blowing 15, and
It's the only way I can stay in shape. I don't do running otherwise.
I had to quit running
Gotcha.
because the ice cubes kept falling out of my glass.
Physical exercise program.
So Tony's asking, what do you think about an electric paramotor?
So I am no authority on that, although I have that friend of mine, Matt Miller, who is not too impressed with what's going on with the electric paramotor right now. I guess they're still working out some issues with the electric part and evidently parts, and everything is kind of, I don't want to say wrong with it. I'm not trying to ruin anybody's, opportunity to kind of sell paramotors that way, but you don't see them too often. And when you do, they don't seem to be flying around too much. Didn't we have one in Fowler at Mixer's place? One guy showed up with an electric PPG.
Eric is saying yes.
Dave? Yeah,
Said he didn't see him fly though.
that's my point. He did fly once and it was real fast. No, I'd love to see the paramotor world go in that direction if that's what somebody wants, an electric paramotor. But for me, I'm still happy. I'm one of those guys. If I buy something, I plan on holding on to that thing for a long time to get my money's worth. Whereas some people can cycle the wings out, they can cycle the paramotors, they can't figure out, they don't like the way it feels and they don't like this. And I'm like, no, I'm not throwing my money away. I don't throw my money away on things just because I don't like them. I have to suck them up, Buttercup, and just deal with it because this stuff is expensive.
Yep, Mad Sloper, he's got a SP140 EPPG. He's no problems.
What has he got?
SP140 EPPG. I don't know what that stands for, but he's got one and he has no problem.
That's the most common one. Mad
Is it?
Sloper, do you got the 1 prop or the 4 props?
So
I
he
got
ought to, he ought to come on one of these days and try to push his, thought process. I'd love to hear more about it as well. But the one person that I know that kind of stays close to that, he said he has not switched over because I guess there's a parts issue. There's just some issues going on with the electric paramotor right now that you can't, once you blow up your paramotor the first time, you're SOL until you can either make your own parts or wait it out, and nobody wants to do that.
He says it's a tri-blade, 140 centimeters.
140 centimeters.
Oh,
Where does he live?
nice.
What state?
Nevada.
You live in Nevada?
Nevada.
He's out in Vegas.
And those aren't bad. If your flying style is like a half hour, 45 minutes, I mean, some of the super experienced pros, you look at Kyle Mooney, he takes a 10, 15-minute rip and he's done. That's not a bad solution for some folks.
Yeah.
I agree. That's something I haven't seen Kyle in a while. Man, that dude, he's impressive. There's so many impressive pilots out there that do what they do. I enjoy and admire watching those guys that go out and fly. I wish there were a way to create competitions for them, those that want to do acro, and a way to score them and create some sort of contest that, that the paramotor world at a fly-in could watch. That would be fun.
And the Mad Sloper says his typical flight lasts about 30 minutes. That's not too bad.
No, for somebody who enjoys 30 minutes, I got to have more sometimes, for sure.
Yeah.
It's been almost a month and a half I've been without flying since Mixer's fly-in. I haven't flown since then. This is the longest in almost 8 years that I've been flying that I have not flown.
Oh, wow.
Terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just
end it
I'm waiting.
now. Just quit. You're done.
Just go play on the highway. Well, I want more questions about fly-ins because that's I don't know. I want to talk more or help people if I can that don't know anything about it or want to know about it. They can even message me separately because I want to help whoever needs help. And I think it should be kind of self-governed, if you will. If you see somebody doing something wrong out there in the paramotor world, that, if you know how to tactfully go up to them and you can approach them in a manner that's not offensive, and maybe just pick their brains about how or why they did what they did, because sometimes I see, we all see it. We see some dumb stuff going on, and it's like, I don't even know if they know what could potentially happen when it comes to mechanical rotor. That's something that I've always kind of feared. It's something you can't see, but it exists. And then, like with what Kyle O always talks about with the weather, the stuff that I've learned from him and his videos, just listening to him about weather, I've gone up in the air, we all have, and as soon as you go up, you start feeling rain hit your face, or if the temperature changes real fast, land out. I think that should be, I don't know if everybody knows that or not, but when something happens and it's that drastic, it's best to just land out and cut your losses that way than to try to come back in. One of the most spectacular landings I've ever seen in my life was by Chris Montez. And I wished he would make a video, but at Endless one evening, there was like a windstorm or a storm that was coming in, and Steve knows where I parked my trailer, but he came in behind my trailer, and the wind was coming right towards him, and everybody was kind of crashing. If you didn't know how to handle this strong wind, as soon as you landed and you didn't kill your wing, you were going to get drugged by your wing. And we've seen a bunch of that happen, and it's ugly to watch. But this guy came in behind my trailer about 20 feet above, and then he just set it down like an angel right behind that trailer. And I tried to email Tucker Gott once to try to make a video of that, because that was something that I had never seen before. And I started going around the camp and talking to some of the veterans of the sport. And, you know, I've had some people even say, yeah, you can do that easy behind a clump of trees. Just come in right behind a clump of trees and set it down 20, 30 feet before the clump of trees. And I was like, I didn't know that you could do that. But I wish somebody would make a video like that. And then you could learn something serious about how to land in bad weather like that. Maybe Kyle would do it. I don't know.
I had you on mute. He would definitely land in rotor.
I would do it. How does this work? 100%.
We got some strong winds next week. You got to do it next week.
So
You don't have any clumps of trees. It's just all trees.
Is it?
Yeah.
Kyle,
Do you know Chris Montez, Kyle?
Let me tell you the best landing the most memorable landing I ever saw Chris do. It was at first, second, third. It was back when it was at Fort Smith, the EFD. And I've got my headset on and I'm jamming some classical music, like some orchestral, I don't know, Mozart or something, strings, no words, no lyrics. And it's just, and I'm getting ready to do a reverse. And I turn around and Chris smashes this flat top paramotor into the ground and the propeller goes through the gas tanks and he slides about 50 feet over to where he was camped. And I'm watching it happen like 20 feet from me where he hit. And all I can hear is this music playing. And seeing him go across the grass like that. And I was like, wow, that was impressive. You know, I never heard the first sound, but he gets up and he kind of kicks that paramotor over and pulls out another one and goes again and takes off. It was a hoot. It was amazing. Just my perspective of it. And I mean,
I get it.
He bent the flat top. They do bend. They do break. Seen
Oh
it.
yeah.
No,
If you ever get a chance, Kyle, talk to him about his landing at Endless and ask him if he could, or just tell you, and then you figure out how to make a video, because that was the baddest landing I've ever seen in my life in the strongest wind.
Behind the trailer, like in the rotor zone.
Yep. Like
I mean, that would
flew
keep your wings from blowing away, you know.
Yeah, he flew 20 feet above the ground for probably a football field, and then I'd say 30 feet prior to smacking into my trailer, he just set it down nice, turned around, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen a smoother landing in all my life in those kind of conditions.
Colorado, you know, that's where he's from. That's his home base. So he's all the time in wind, and it's windy there a lot. And you know, he's pushing all the time. I hadn't seen Chris in a minute. He travels a lot, but we spent some time together. He went with me on the Para Carnival, him and Tucky. And we've hung out for weeks on end in the past at a lot of the foot drags. And then again, I've been out west a few times, met up with them and hung out. But he's fun. He's kind of a shorter fella, and he's got that flat top. It's like hitting him in the heels the whole time. I get a kick out of him flying that thing.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm rude. Do you want to hit it then?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. But
All right.
I love those guys. They're a hoot.
So Kyle, while you're on here, Scuba says he's waiting for more Kyle O daily weather forecast streams.
I told you need to make this a thing. Like you're going to be the weatherman for BBG. Like if you're in Pennsylvania, you got some shit coming. And then
it would be the saddest weather report that you've ever heard. just probably peppered with filthy language, and I would probably, I don't know, I might get 20 people to watch that.
Well, it would be all of us.
Yeah, and all that matters, quality over quantity, right?
Right.
There you go.
And
now there's professionals that write the reports. You could go find them 3 times a day, middle of the night, early in the morning, afternoon, and special updates when there's changes. For example, yesterday we had rain with a sprinkling of tornadoes. It was quite the weather exhibit in our area yesterday. And
he's not kidding. If you hang around him, he reads like 20-minute long like weather reports all the time.
Yeah.
Like I just curl up in my bunkie and he just
it puts everybody to sleep. The vocabulary goes, some of it goes right through me, and I've studied it for years. So it's but yeah, you can get the weather report several times a day for your area. It's a forecast discussion is what it's called.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that should be incorporated into fly-ins, and I'm kind of bad about that, but talking about the weather should be done at least or posted somewhere.
3 times a day, every day.
Yeah, it should be posted. That's good.
If you want to
That's
be a good
call.
pilot, you want to be in tune with the weather, because that's the element we're in. You know, if
Yep.
there's a change coming and you're not aware of it and you fly into it, it could hurt you or kill you or scare you or all of the above. Or none of
That's
the above.
right.
But if you know about it, you know, that's G.I. Joe. No one's half the battle. You know, if
That's
you
right.
understand what's happening, you know, that's huge. And that's that's really what got me into it was, you know, initially when I went to pilot school, you know, weather's a big part of pilot school, but it's on such a broader level. You know, you're looking at it on an airplane scale. But when I picked up paragliding, you know, and especially mountain flying in the thermals, you know, there's a whole micro level of weather that they don't even talk about on the news and stuff that, you know, you start looking at how things happen. For example, behind the trailer, behind the trees, behind the little mountain, you know, I went to there's a volcano video I did where I camped on a volcano out there in the Mojave, and all the weather predictions were showing east winds. And so I drove over there to the east side of the volcano on the caldera, and the winds were all weird. And I just hiked around to the top, and I realized that the sun was shining on the west face, and it was making its own weather there. And the wind was blasting up the side of the mountain that was facing west. And all around the valley, everything was supposed to be east, but that one little bubble had a nice west wind. Ended up surfing it all evening by myself. But it was just one of those observational moments, you know, like, although all the weather forecasts said east, that's not what I was getting there, but I had to look at it and see it. That was just kind of a weird little thing that I picked up on, but you know, it's there to look at and see. There's signs that,
Good call.
You know, weather stuff.
Well, we want more of it.
That's right.
I'm gonna have to do stuff. It's been a minute.
You said you're getting bored with stuff. I'm telling you.
I've just done so many videos. I don't know what else I could say. I really am having
You're going to be our daily
a
weather
struggle. What have I not said about paramotors? You know,
Let's talk about weather in Pennsylvania. I don't care about this. I'm going to watch.
Yeah. I'll make some weather content. I will. Fun stuff.
I know I had a question. Thinking of Kyle making his video on making his helmet. Martin, what kind of helmet are you flying in, if I can show some of the pictures?
So that's the Nirvana's own little helmet that they have, and that's a good helmet right there. I don't know if
No, big.
Amen.
no, not that much, but they like their helmet.
I'm coming in hot.
There's his legs.
Yeah, cute
Ooh.
legs.
Hey, so question for Martin: do those legs go all the way up?
Yes, up to my hips.
There's Scott.
Oh,
I
that's
heard
my
Nirvana
inner
actually-
Viking. And
Yep,
I
hang
heard
on. We'll go
Nirvana
back
has
to
really
it.
good gloves.
I'm trying to find the. There we go.
Oh, there it was.
there it is.
Oh, sexy.
Let's see.
You've
if
never
I-
seen that helmet, Jade?
No. I'm gonna try
That
to
is
find.
the lightest.
It's made out of dolomite. It's a tough black rock that won't cop out when the heat's all about.
Oh, here you can see the helmet.
See how
cut.
the ear muffs, if you will, are integrated into the helmet. This is the only one. I do not like that Teletubby look, and I've had those kind of helmets before, a couple of them, and this one just kind of keeps it sleek. But you can't hear much of anything once that helmet gets put on your head, and it's not that it's tight on your neck or around your skull. It's not tight at all. But those ear muffs on there are good, very good, and they've got speakers in them and capabilities of having two-way radios or aviation radios. So really good helmet.
Okay.
That was
Matt
in
Slipper-
Ohio, by the way.
Matt Slipper wants to know if they launch weather balloons from the airport at EFD for the
No.
flying. No,
No. Yeah.
I believe that's what he's asking.
It's a good question, and I've
Weather
heard some
station.
people do that at fly-ins. You know, where they launch. A lot of old timers I've seen do that at fly-ins, but yeah, we don't do that. That was in Florida, obviously. I want to go to Florida. That was in Oshkosh.
Yeah, this year?
No, you want to go to Texas is where you want to go. You can camp, fly. It's perfect. Florida's too much work.
Texas is better than Florida for paramotor activities.
Is it really?
You can drive right out on the beach. Nobody's there
Oh.
to mess with you. You can camp, fly. I mean, the sand's packed good. There's nobody
Yeah.
around. Even in the summer, there's not as many people as Florida. And Florida's just so wrapped up. It's East Coast.
Right.
It's tight, thick with people and problems. But Texas
Yeah.
is room. You can spread out, pick you a spot, have a picnic, fly, have a drink, have an eat, swim, fly, have a drink, have an eat, swim, and just repeat and
Barbecue.
rinse as many times as you want.
So that
It's
was
really-
the first year, Jade, on that picture. That was the first year we flew in. That was the year that everybody was allowed to paramotor into
Gosh, guy.
the Oshkosh. That was something spectacular right there.
Oh, this is kind of down
I
towards the
couldn't
South 40. Yeah.
It is. Have you heard they're going to make a separate field for us?
Yes. And not this year, but in a couple of years at least.
Wait, where? Where are they doing second field?
Ours will be
At
down here,
Oshkosh.
Oh, really?
South 40 area, I believe.
Yeah, I almost got in trouble there. You had to fly a
It's easy
specific
to get in
pattern.
trouble. That's
And,
right.
I asked
That's
Justin
cool.
Fox what to do. He's like, follow everybody else. Well, it doesn't help when everybody's blowing their launches and stuff, and you're the first one up. And what is the first thing you do? Climb high. And I was like way too high at Oshkosh. And but luckily, they were cool with it.
No place to land. That was in Michigan. That was in
Right.
Indiana. Yeah.
Are those all
I
your
tell you
bonus?
what. That was, I think,
You can retire.
2015. I missed it.
I said you could retire if you had all those.
Yeah, good call. Look at that RV in the
Like owning
background, too.
Bitcoin when it's 40.
Yeah, there's a lot of money in paramotors.
What's this?
Wow. I got a horny toad lizard, a turtle, and a rattlesnake. And that was in California.
When I was in high school. Like lunchtime.
I like that.
And, that's Matt Miller. That's my boy. See, that was a cool picture because that was the first time I'd ever seen I hope I say it right, either an Amish or
Hey,
a
is that me?
Mennonite. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's not me.
Yeah, she knew what she was doing and she took off. And that was impressive. She strapped her skirt or whatever, her dress. She put straps all around it and just took off from, that was also at Oshkosh at Pickett Field.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Y'all got to check that out, Jade. Instead of, we have our own little paramotor world going on at Pickett Field. And Scott Starbeck's in charge of it. So if you want any questions, he'll guide you on what you need to do, where to go, all that stuff. And it's just by donations that we stay there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's that?
Also in Florida.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I want to say either Pensacola or, yeah, probably Pensacola.
How about this one?
Believe it or not, that is one cool statue that's like in the ground and his legs are popping up all over the place. And it's here in the St. Louis area. It's at a park.
Cool.
Isn't that something? It's like he's trying to keep from being swallowed by the earth,
Mm-hmm.
or he's trying to escape the earth and come out of it. I don't know. It's your interpretation.
You should have hung your paramotor from his thumb.
You're not going to believe this. I have a sad story to say about that picture. I just bought that paramotor probably a week prior to that picture. I sat it up there. I took a picture, and all of a sudden, I just saw it slowly but surely. Just fell right off of that thing.
Oh no.
Yep. Broke a spar, bent a cage part. I was so mad because I was headed to go flying somewhere. But I thought, oh, I know where a cool statue is. I'm going to take a picture of that. And I turned around and dropped that paramotor right off. That's about 4 or 5 feet off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I had one sitting on the back of a truck one time and took off a little too fast, and it took the nosedive. It just squashed the top of the hoop exactly, though.
Mm.
That's a cool.
I know the
picture.
sadness you speak of, though.
You feel my pain.
I've bent a few.
Yeah.
Also
Oh, believe you me.
Other people bent a few of mine too.
I bet.
A couple.
That's
So
nature
that-
of school, right? I pull up my
Right.
paramotor, they're all beat to hell. You know, I'm just seeing how long they can last and what breaks first. And, people
Right.
are like, this is yours. I'm like, kind of. You know, I share it. Done a lot of first flights and first attempts.
So that's my backyard. Just looking at, I just bought that paramotor and just put it together, and I was like, I wish it looked like that now, man.
It looks like you just blew the leaves, huh?
Yeah. That was May of 2017 when I bought that.
Icarus, Mr. Icarus.
Yeah. Yeah. I went to Florida for that race actually, and on the second day I turtled. First and only time I've ever turtled, but that's what I was in that Icarus race, and I had to excuse myself because I didn't have enough spare parts.
Yeah, they were trying to get me to do one of those in Arkansas when they did the EFD there. They were having one, and they were begging me to do it. And the course was going to take them straight into Mountain Rotor, and the clouds were below the tops of the mountains. And I just laughed and was like, no. And I think everybody that took off crashed.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't feel bad, Martin. I've always had to excuse myself too because I'm nothing but spare parts.
That's a good shot.
Right. This one's even
Yeah.
better.
I bet I passed my I set my camera up there and I had one of those remote controls on the GoPro, and I bet I passed that same spot 5 or 6 times just to learn how to use the camera. But yeah, flying in the snow is not an issue. It's not, as long as the weather's right.
Right.
Just don't eat the yellow stuff.
Uh-oh.
That's right.
Look
Yep.
at the decoration.
Not good.
Sweet.
That's
So that was
that's
on-
an $800 prop.
Yep, that was one
Christmas ornament.
accident at Beach Blast, and oh man, I'm telling you, I blasted in so hard because I was going to do the right thing, and I followed Jeff Gowen's video where he says run along the beach, then come inland, do your final, and I grabbed the wrong. The wrong. It wasn't my brake toggle. I grabbed my wingtip steering, and it just piled me right into the ground, and I blew up my whole paramotor. Just blew it up. Look at that thing, precious baby.
It's a good thing that was a rodeo.
What is that?
Yeah.
That's a rodeo.
It's a mess. That's what it is.
I think
Yeah,
it's good
but-
we can look back and laugh, though. You know, I mean, paramotors, you can crash them and fold them up and then literally zip time, duct tape them, and then fly them an hour later. What other thing can you
Good
do
call.
that with in the aviation world?
Good call.
I mean, who cares if they got the 50 zip ties and some duct tape? They work, they run, they don't fall apart in flight, and they keep the lines out of the propeller.
Right.
You know,
And this is
And
this
yeah,
is
it's
how
nice to
good.
have shiny things. Of course, we like shiny things. We're people. but
Right.
the magic isn't in what it looks like; it's what it does. So
See, I
That's
just
right.
wish I had those same kind of tools for my love life abilities.
Maybe I should have took my first one I wrecked to Kylo. He could have put
What
it
you
back
got?
together.
Go when you wreck it, man.
Okay. I got some skills band-aiding them now. I've been practicing that for years.
So let
But
me
there's
let me
still,
throw a
there's still
little.
something to be said that I always kind of laugh like, oh, I broke it. And then I'm doing the math in my head. Like it's broke. I can have it flying in 1.5 hours. Like stand by, it's still daylight, you know, and boom, it works and we fly it. There's nothing else. Like, oh, you hit an airplane, you bump an airplane on a hangar door. It's like all bets are off. Call the mechanic. Let's take it apart and inspect it, you know, and that's what they need because you know, airplanes need to work way better than paramotors. But, you know, the motor is, you know, just to reiterate, it's an accessory. You know, we're flying that glider, we're in that harness, and it's the ass to wing connection that is vital and crucial. And as long as that's good, you can have an egg beater back there pushing you. That's on fire and it's still doing the job. And when it dies, you still got the wing connected to your butt. So that's the beauty of these things. They're just accessories to flying glider, and that's where the magic is really at.
Hey, this is a kid's show. You can't say the ass word on here.
I told you not to get me on here. I burn it. The trash hole is open. You don't ever know what's going to fall out. Apologies.
Let me throw one last story about motor.
Sure.
That picture of my blown up rodeo. I did that on the first flight when I got to Beach Blast. The first flight that evening, I blew up my paramotor and I was distraught. I didn't know what to do. If it weren't for Cameron Klein, he knew Mike Tiffy, and Mike Tiffy brought both a rodeo and an instinct to that fly-in. And that following morning, I called through Cameron Klein. I called Mike Tiffy and says, "Hey, I'll buy any part you have for the rodeo." He says, "No." And I had never, mind you, I had never met Mike Tiffy before in my life. And he says, "I tell you what, you come over here and grab whatever part you want, and you know the deal if something happens." And I was like, good call. So I took his propeller, his cage parts, put it on my rodeo, and went flying that morning. But that's just how good this community is as far as the people that we know and that we work with, or not work with, but associate with. They're willing to give anything that they have to help you get that flight in. And I knew I found a home within the paramotor community when somebody's willing to do something like that without even ever having met you before. So what a cool community we have.
100%.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Scott Starbeck wants to know, what kind of training did you use to fly the flag into the NASCAR track?
What kind of training? I didn't have any training other than flying a flag a couple of 3 or 4 times at different locations. But that was Woody Hayes actually showed up and helped me.
Oh no.
Yeah, I flew at night, and I'd never done a night flight before. And the NASCAR track that I flew
on the interwebs.
We're not supposed to fly at night.
Oh,
It's illegal.
I had permission from the NASCAR people. How's that?
That's right. Wavered. You're wavered.
Anyways,
Good old boy
I
wavered.
flew at night, and there's a bowl at that NASCAR track, and that, man, I was getting rocked around pretty good. I knew not to go in it because I think that would have been kind of the end of my flight, because that rotor coming off of that NASCAR track would have been pretty ugly. So I stayed above it and I flew, but there was no training. But thanks for that question, Scott. That was one touching, like that was a moment that I literally cried when I was flying, because I could hear people singing the national anthem as the announcer saying, you know, this flag is being carried by Martin Henderson, and then you hear people singing the national anthem, and then they clap, and I was like, oh my gosh, I lost it while flying. But then I landed real fast, and I was happy. It was over with. Very fun. So,
Nice.
yeah.
All right. Eric, and I know Bill H brought it up earlier too, and Eric had asked, why don't you and Scott put together an air boss group to train pilots to be bosses for fly-ins? And then Bill H, I think way back when we were originally talking about this, said something about maybe get a group with the USPPA together.
That is an
No,
excellent
all you
idea.
need is a golf cart. That's all you need to be an air boss, right? Golf
And a
cart,
shirt.
blue vest.
And a shirt.
I'll get out.
No, you got to be made for it. It's like maybe she was born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. Yeah.
It'd be a good idea if we could get a group of guys that were that interested in air bossing. I would surely be interested in it, and then
What
to
about
go
the
to
ladies?
different events.
Ladies can be super bossy. Can't forget about them. Just look at Weezy.
Yeah,
up there.
well, they're welcome too. They'll probably do a better job than we would. Women would do a much better job than we would.
She strikes
Golf
fear
cart,
in the
you know.
fucking soul.
I am not bossy.
Oh, I forgot. Usually I start the show this way, but I forgot to ask a really important question. Hey, Weezy. How you
Hey,
doing?
Steve. How
Hey,
are you?
Weezy. Yeah. Nice.
So you guys got any other questions for Martin or any on the topic of fly-ins? Bring them now. If anybody wants to maybe join in on the chat. Oh, one thing I did want to say is I'm sorry. I did not know that Kyle was coming in. There was a possibility, Steve said this morning, but Kyle escaped work
Surprise.
at the last minute here and
At
decided to
pharmacy
join
prison
us.
today. Hey, I got a question. Do you miss just being a regular contestant at a fly-in, Martin? Does it,
Endless, I do. I get
almost
so
feels like
mad.
a job, like I've been, back in the shooting days when I was pistoling all over the country, and I would run some of these matches, and it became just like suck the love out of it because you're doing something else instead of what everybody else is doing. Everybody else is either flying or in my case shooting, and then you've got this sort of job to do that's not paid,
Yep.
not really appreciated as much as I think it should be. But then I
Right.
was wondering if you missed that, like just going and doing the flying things, flying and then having a beer later and being done and not have to shake your finger at anyone, right?
Right. So I do miss that, but we got new leadership. Landon March took over this year's endless foot drag, and he separated. Originally, my job was air boss / parking lot attendant / anything that Michael Holiday needed done. He would radio me, and then I would do it. And it was a sun up, sundown for 7 days straight.
Who
And
was
I-
your saving grace?
I
Who was your saving
I got
grace
burnt
this
out.
year?
Who was Scott Starbeck and Sean Hartman? Big
Wow,
time
that
help.
was not what I was looking for at all.
Oh. What were you looking for?
Full facial wink. Come on.
Full what?
You
Oh,
didn't have to worry
the-
about parking and registering.
Yeah. Thankfully. Yeah, no, we had an issue. We had a couple of issues.
You had no issues.
but
You had no issues
we had
whatsoever.
issues. We had issues. Dang. But hopefully they got resolved and buried. I don't know. But back to the leadership part. We have a new leader in Landon March, who's kind of my boss at Endless Foot Drag, and he pretty much separated and gave the parking to the Nebraska Paramotor, and so they are helping out big time. And yeah, big props for that. And that helps because then everybody gets a piece of the pie and can help a fly-in, because it was too much for me, and I was ready to throw in the towel. Like, I don't want to do this no more when you take the fun away from it. So each one of the air bosses at Endless picks a morning shift or an evening shift, and then they say, it's time for me to fly. And then it gives the other two the responsibility of watching what's going on and meeting, doing their job while the other person gets to go fly. So it is It is well appreciated. I can't say it enough for those two.
And just to piggyback off of Kyle's question with that, so like this year I got volunteered to register and park like all week. And
Right.
yeah, it took me away from flying and stuff sometimes, but I absolutely loved it because when I go to fly-ins, I don't consider that like going to fly and have the best flying I've ever had. I kind of go to those things to see people. Like that's my main mission. So usually I don't need a whole lot of flying to be satisfied. If I get a little bit of alone time to do that, I'm perfectly happy. But if I have the opportunity to help out and make it a little bit better, I mean, that's so much better. I can go home and fly my butt off, you know?
Well, so next year, leave that job of yours behind and get out there and even intermingle some more, because you were on that PC almost all day, every day.
That's how I have the freedom to be able to go around so much, is because I do that. You know, it's a give and take. Someday
you
when
did
I'm
say
older
that
and
was
I've got
your
a
job.
shit ton of cash. Oh, I can't say shit on the interwebs. This is a kid's show.
Bummer.
You know, when
It's
I get my pharmacist degree and I can afford it.
It's called, all you got to do is say sugar honey iced tea and we'll know what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're saying.
So Tony wants to know.
They're not
who's
real big
above
on acronyms in Nebraska.
Tony wants to know who's above the air bosses. Is there a boss over you guys?
Yeah,
Well,
it's Landon March.
Jesus.
Yeah, the guy, the new leadership that we have, he's the one that kind of runs the whole show. He can fire me, hire me, tell me to just walk away. It's his call. So, and that goes probably for any and all fly-ins. Whoever's hosting the fly-in, if he's got some people willing to help. I was kind of thinking that Endless was the only place that I'd want to do some air bossing, because now you're stepping into other territory and you don't know everybody in that area, and it just, if it becomes work, then it's not going to be too much. It's not fun when like what you said, Kyle, if you lose its luster, it's not worth the time.
So
I
you
don't think
think
it
it
would be
would
something you would want to do all over everywhere, you know, again, like posting the fly-in, you know, get the local guys to be the air bosses. And
Exactly.
It would be easier to boss to do the air boss if you didn't know the people?
Well, you don't know probably more than half the people. Well, I'd say in my case now, I feel like I know quite a few people because this is the fourth or fifth year that I've done the Endless. So I have a general idea, even though I've taken myself off of Facebook. I don't know who is the who right now. And when they show up, it's a good opportunity to get to know somebody if they're willing to break bread. If they don't want to break bread, which there's a lot of people that don't want to small talk, and you know, when you feel that vibe, you have to bounce, because that's
guy
on
down at
them.
the very end of the field by itself.
Yeah, I feel bad for you,
Good
Martin.
call.
You
The
get good
hermit.
Facebook, you don't get to see all my selfies that I
Paramotor
do like
hermit.
5 times a day.
Right.
So, Martin, Eric's got a question. Some pilots think that air bosses are babysitters. What do you think the safety record would be at EFD if there was no air bosses?
What would it is kind of babysitting. It's a word salad game now. Thanks, Shannon. It's a word game. So I don't want to look at it as babysitting. I want to look at it like these are free adults in a hobby or a sport that we do, that we have to self-govern ourselves. I don't see why it should be looked upon as being kind of where somebody, if you're an adult and you buy a toy that you strap on your back and you have to be told several times what not to do. I wish sometimes people would see that this isn't me wanting to be a bad person about asking you to do something. It's because I have an area of responsibility, and it's my responsibility to ensure safety at a fly-in. That's all. And I want to help people. I really do. I think that's the fun of it. I I had more time sometimes to help everybody, even on technique. A lot of times when you see somebody and you see them fail the second or third launch, I take videos from behind them. I don't never sit in front of them, but I'll videotape that. And if they feel like watching this video, then they might see that they're off, or they applied too much brake, or that their wing had a cravat in it, or whatever. You know, if they're willing to take the time to learn something, I'm willing to show them that video real fast, because I want to help people. I don't think I want to instruct. I don't know, man, I don't know how people do that. That instructing thing does not seem fun.
I want to chime in on this with like how much attention we pay to safety and whatnot, and what your job is, because, you know, when you think in numbers at a fly-in, all it takes is one. If one person got seriously injured or died, I mean, that hits everybody. I mean, that's a horrible thing to happen. You know, we all assume certain risk, but if it's done safely, it doesn't happen. But if it does, that will kill everybody. Kyle, and I wish he was here to back me up on this, but he's got an EFD video from like 3 or 4 years ago where he was flying and he got radioed that somebody crashed, and he went home just entirely heartbroken. Like, it only just takes that one person. I've been there when there's an accident, and that accident wasn't, you know, a collision or anything. They just spun their glider outside my camper. But some of the unregulated fly-ins like Salton Sea, where you're hearing stories like Ryan Southwell getting his wings shredded up and stuff because there's so much air congestion, people not paying attention. It just takes one super bad accident, and you care about that one person, but it's not like you walk away from a fly-in thinking, oh, 2 people broke their backs, that was a good fly-in. No, it just takes one. And, you know, that's what the job is where people don't collide, and that we're all making smart decisions to put ourselves in the best.
It's a good fly-in when everybody goes home safe. That's a good fly-in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody just needs to go home safe. That's the whole point. And one screw up's going to ruin that, like in a big way. It's not like, hey, we do this dangerous activity. Oh, we assume that's not how it works. If something happens, that's going to kill us, because it's preventable. When we're smart, 99% of the time, something's preventable.
Right.
Good call.
Yes, definitely.
And I have grown to, at these fly-ins that you go to in any given state, in any city within the state, they appreciate that we show up. But then when it turns into a liability of somebody having been hurt on an airport or privately, I mean, you've heard, I don't know if you guys have heard, there's lawsuits that are involved when somebody hurts themselves, and then they go to suing the people who own the land or who they had a run-in with. There's been several mid-air collisions where there's still things going on with these collisions that that's the reason why they shut the fly-in down. They can't do it anymore. So that's why I like safety. I mean, it's that important, and it's the reason why a fly-in will no longer exist when somebody gets hurt that bad. So, when a flight for life has to come and get that person, and I've seen that happen now already. Well, this was quite a few years ago. Luckily, nothing was ever, like, the fly-in did not stop because of it. I think it got too big, and I think if when that happened, it's just it's in Florida, and Florida, like Kyle was saying, it's big time over there, and that's in that state. So they just had to shut the fly-in down. So we don't want that to happen in the Midwest or where we live. That wouldn't be fun.
Correct. I'm sure everybody's seen some bad stuff. I know I've seen some, and it still kind of haunts me. So
yeah, I was just telling them, you know, they talk about accidents, like number of accidents that are flying or whatever, but it just takes that one really bad. You were at EFD.
There was a fatality
years ago, and you went home pretty fun. Like it doesn't matter how many. You don't walk away like there's 3 accidents. That was good flying. It was like, oh, I was flying. One guy died.
I was conflicted. You know, I thought it was my friend Brian. I got a broken phone call, and I could only pick up pieces of the phone call, and it was you know, what I was hearing was Brian West was dead. And you know, I was only like 30 miles away from the field on a cross country. I just turned around and headed back, and I flew right back and over the scene of the accident. And the whole time on the way back, I was thinking about it. And then I got back and seen the fatality was not him. Like I saw the pilot there on the ground, and I recognized the guy, and I you know, it was weird. I didn't want to be happy that it wasn't Brian because it was a guy dead there, but at the same time, it was strange. It put me in a strange spot emotionally. But that was the reason EFD moved to Kansas anyway, because the guy who on the field,
I met him.
There was a fly in there, but the first time somebody got killed, it was over and they were out. And you know, Britain lost that sod farm because of that. But anyway, that was the deal they made decades before there was us there, you know, and that happened. This was the deal the guy made initially with Britain, as you know. You can have it. If somebody gets got, you're gone. And that was the deal. So, but personally, that was what they was telling me was a guy that came with Brian West was dead. But all I was hearing was the last part of the sentence. And anyway, I was happy that it wasn't him, but I was sad that it was anyone. So again, totally conflicted emotions. I never felt like that before. I thought that this feeling, and then all of a sudden, nope, you're wrong. And how do you feel about that? You know, it blew my mind, and it took me a minute to get past that. So, but
I met that guy. I met that guy the day before he passed away. And
Me too.
It wasn't. He, you know, again, this goes back to a big time of safety that it's never covered. A lot of people fly and they start graduating themselves into wings. And I think Kyle's made a video of that or whatever. And then I don't know Brad Roper, but he said something very good recently, that there should be a written standard, or that the USPPA should put out kind of a standard that in order for you to graduate to the next wing and the next level, you should have X amount of hours on that wing to understand what all it can do. And that's the first person that ever put that out publicly. And I commend him for those words, because so many people are graduating themselves to another level, And next thing you know, they're doing things on so low to the ground. And when they wipe out and hurt themselves, they didn't even know how to operate that wing. So
yeah, but
I like that kind of stuff.
Gauge? You can't gauge by hours.
This guy in particular was on a universal. I mean, one of the best wings out there for new guys. And he was just doing things he shouldn't have been doing. He was hard spirals, and they told him not to do it the day before.
And he was told
doing hard round spirals, and we don't know what happened, obviously, but my buddy Jim saw him go all the way to the ground just like that.
Yeah,
you know, plowed in. Now,
but
you know,
this is
graduating wings, more like graduating skills, I guess, would be a thing. But how do you measure that? How do you? Everybody's so different.
Hours, like 100 hours on a wing before you graduate to the next. It's an option that could be exercised. Maybe just knowing. I don't know. Like, I still haven't hit every aspect of what my wing can do, and I probably never will. But that's not my style of fly.
Y'all may spend more time like looking at the numbers. I've not looked at statistics in a while. I know when I started, drowning was the number one fatality. And number one injury was a body part in the propeller. You know, I've got one of those. But you know, I think recently I heard, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but that low acro fatalities had taken the lead over drownings. And again, I don't know. That's just hearsay. I heard somebody say it. Don't know if it's true or not, but you do see a lot of it, you know, online. People wingy dinghying too low and then kaplow, you know, the motor goes out and they're not at the right altitude and they smack it in. I call it the danger zone. That sort of 50 feet down to 20 feet area ish, you know, it's not hard lines in the sand, but that low area where when you go big and you miss, you hit the dirt. And, you know, and that's when people are really, really taking bangers. And I don't know. Somebody might want to look that up and report back later, but low acro, that's
Seems
the
what it's
problem.
been the last 2 years. Yeah.
That's the problem for sure. And I think it's people pushing too hard, or crowds. Crowds are something I think that's where fly-ins get so trickety too. In your situation as an air boss, is everybody wants to do things where people can see them.
Yeah.
The crowd gets you in trouble. It's gotten me in trouble. You do things when people are watching. One time I got blowed over a mountain. I was free flying and I was doing passes by these onlookers. They were at an overlook. And I wasn't even doing anything silly. I was just making a right turn. I was doing right turns by these people. And I come around to do a right turn, and all of a sudden I got drilled with sink, and I had to go over the back and land in a damn tree like a bird. But it was because I was doing stuff close to the people. That was the reason it happened ultimately, and I wasn't being low acro or anything. I was just kind of waving, just going by and sort of waving. They were yelling and taking pictures, but it certainly got me, and it could get anybody. But, lesson learned. I ignore the crowd now and just kind of go away from them and do my thing, hopefully where nobody can see me.
Yeah, crowds and attention is terrible. Like, cross-dressers cause so many accidents because they, see me flying. They're like, oh, fuck. They, pull, and then they get themselves into a situation, and then they crash on the ground.
Yeah, it's a thing. Everybody should consider it. Britton, bringing him back to the conversation, he told me way back, he said, look, when people are watching, make it look easy. He's like, wing overs and barrel rolls. He said that makes people nervous. They get tense and scared, and it leaves a bad feeling to the unknown. I had that situation here with my dad. He's a golfer. He's always at the golf course. And so I just happened to be flying near the golf course one evening, and I looked down, there's a gigantic field next to it. And I'm like, oh, I want to go foot drag down there. There's a flag. There was no wind blowing. I was like, yeah. So I do wing over, barrel roll, level out, foot drag. But him and his golfing buddies see me, behind the trees. And they're like, oh, my God, he's down. Call 911. And, Daddy called me later. He's like, don't you ever do that shit where I can see you.
You can't see the shit where this is the goddamn kid show.
Yeah, it was, but again, his Britton's words came back to my mind. Like, if people can watch, just fly straight and level. That's good enough. They think it's amazing. If they've never seen it, just like, wow, that guy, he's flying a parachute with a fan. You don't have to do any tricks for him. Just being there in the sky is kind of enough. So if you look at it from that perspective, that's what I always try to do now. If there's traffic or crowds or people, I just sort of fly by and wave there, Yeah, I got a piranha for a new pet, guys. There you go. Look this is what piranhas look like now. They eat everything.
A blue healer. Good looking dog there.
That's it.
So Martin, is
yes, ma'am.
Sean Hartman a air boss also?
He is.
Okay.
He is. He's hopefully going to help out next year. I don't know. I haven't even talked to him about it, but yeah, he helped out for the first time this year, which is greatly appreciated. Big time. Big help.
Right.
I appreciate him too because he's a really good looking air boss. Yeah.
And then Travis has got a question. Did you know or have you flown with Kenny Loudermilk?
I did not know him. I'm kind of glad I didn't because we all kind of know how he passed away.
Yeah.
And this brings me into another small segment about flying and choosing where to fly. So I don't know this gentleman. I don't know if I'm going to get myself into a bit of a trouble, but I know where he flew. And when you have a motor out there, you go into the river. It's a big, wide river. And he shouldn't have been flying that low over water, especially without some sort of a gamma. Yeah. And I have a feeling that he might have been drawing a crowd because there's a parking rest area there. And if he had a motor out, there was no place to land but the water. And that's it's an unfortunate scenario that, again, I've flown with people who have no land outs. So I'm always the one that's grabbing some altitude. I don't mess with that stuff because you got no place to land. And I'm quite sure everybody has been taught, if they've been trained, always have a place to land out. And I remember Kyle O's video on that. You know, it's like we constantly should be looking, if something were to happen, is that where I would land? Can I land there? And that's the way you should fly, period. But some people, I don't know how they've been trained. It's unfortunate because this is, you know, this gentleman with a young daughter passed away and they still haven't found him up here. And this was avoidable for sure.
Well, easy way to do it. How I do my students is, you know, we draw it out. Like when you're here and the wind is here and your field is there, where's the best spot to be? And what puts you in, just go to that spot. It's like a preemptive, you know, strike. And if you can do it at one field, you can do it at any field. And if you're real good at spot landing, you can do it at a small field, you know, with obstructions. And it just got, you know, it's the same game though. You know, what I do as an experienced pilot is the exact same fundamental things that we teach the brand new guys to do and girls too. And just a note about tree landings. You're talking about options, you know, at the edge of the river, typically there's trees. I've personally been witness to at least a dozen tree landings, most of them in the free flight, you know, scenarios, but every one of them, the type of injuries that I've seen, every time we've ever approached the pilot after they were in a tree landing, it's like, are you okay? They say, yeah, I got a scratch on my arm. That's the sentence that comes up over and over is, I got a scratch on my arm and maybe my glider's ripped a little bit. But tree landings seem to be relatively benign. You know, and if you fall out of the tree after you land in it, that's where, you know, the worst stuff happens. But, you know, if it's trees or water, go to the trees. Don't, you know, they look scary and pokey, but the water will kill you dead. So, you know, I can't speak for anybody but myself, but I hate to see anybody pick the worst of the two options. If you got those two options presented, whatever the mistake was made back there, it don't happen when you go in. It happens further back, as most do. That's the bailout game. But if you got trees or water, always pick trees. Unless you know the water's shallow and forgiving, maybe that is the option. But that's something to consider just from real world experience.
Hey, Deweese, what's your favorite tree to land in, Deweese?
Oh, I'll take a pine tree. It's soft.
And I was told you're supposed to land in the hardwood trees.
Yeah, they'll catch the glider a little better. Proper tree landing technique implies you center the tree and your canopy kind of goes over the top bushy part. And so when you fall, I mean, it probably will wreck your glider, but that's what keeps you the safest. If you try to go in between them and weave in them, you might hit limbs and you can fall out of the limbs. So you know,
I need to take an oak tree.
Different flavors, but
can we do?
I need to take an oak tree out.
Yes.
Okay, I'll head for an oak tree.
Just don't hurt any squirrels.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna worry about the squirrels.
Just land in a beehive. Oh no, this is a bad tree.
Over in Kansas, you know, you land in the grass and then you got the wheat and then the tall grass, right? That's
We got a lot of pines here.
Oh yeah. But,
yeah, that was something that I was just recently told as go for the hardwood trees, and I was like, oh boy, it's gonna be I'd
have to hunt the oaks.
Oh, not
you know,
here.
when I'm traveling to new places, one of the things I really like to do is sort of hike the area and explore it on foot and picture myself having to land in that sort of terrain. You know, what kind of stuff is sharp or hard or, you know, soft, or, you know, maybe when I was at the Pacific Northwest, the trees there were 3 times bigger than anything I'd ever seen around here. And, you know, I was with Kevin Can Fly. We were kind of taking a nature hike around this little nature trail, and it was like, you know, those trees are nice and soft on top, but the limbs don't start at 50 feet up. And these other trees, they look a little gnarlier, but the limbs go all the way down. So if you're self-retrieving, it gives you a ladder to sort of climb down. And you know, just look what type of tree to go into based on where you're at.
Right.
That's you know, the desert, the cacti, you know, what kind of cacti do I want to go into? Avoid those choyas. Those things are nasty. Yeah, I'd probably rather straddle a swallow than a choya.
Yeah.
Hey, Martin, what do you like to straddle?
Bicycles, horses.
All right. Any other questions? Any other topic on fly-ins? what's the next fly-in? Anybody going to?
What's the first one coming up?
It's the ones out Salton Sea.
February, Salton Sea, Flying Circus. Those
And
are
then
Something's going on
I
in
can think.
Florida, I'm sure.
Okeechobee.
yeah.
There
There's
you
one
go.
like this week, isn't it?
What?
Oh,
Is it
Isn't
your
there one
birthday,
in
Steve?
Florida?
oh, it is. It's
I was
Steve's
never
birthday.
born. I was found in a fortune cookie.
Happy birthday, Steve.
Yes, happy birthday.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Happy birthday, Steve.
Guess how old I am? Look at the grays.
38.
No,
What? How do you know that?
he's not that old.
He's been there, right?
Oh yeah.
Are you that old?
20
Steve?
years ago.
Yeah, I'm 30. You're not 58, Martin. No way.
57.
Man, he's got some Bill H genes in him. Whew.
USPPA has the fly-ins list. Yes.
You had plastic surgery and like a lift and all that sort of stuff.
I got to thank my mama.
Well, I know
All
a
right.
certain somebody that'll appreciate it.
Okay, well, my butt hurts.
You got to get up.
For what reasons?
There you go.
There he
'Cause
is.
this-
That's the Martin we all know.
Okay.
My-
Asking you guys one last time, we need a thumbs up. We need that because we need more people to get us some subscribers. And I've got some, it was brought up tonight about the spinny wheel. No, not doing the spinny wheel. I need some more help on subscribers first. And I'm got some upcoming things coming shortly. So hopefully we'll
You're
be
on
able to
Secret
give away
Santa.
stuff. Got to remember, it's just me
You want
sending
to
this stuff out. So help me out by giving some thumbs up so we can get more people viewing the shows each week. So,
I'll
I
try
will
to
put
put
it
out the word.
yeah.
You know,
Do
we
you advertise, Jade, on Paramotor or all these other social sites? Do you advertise before the show goes on?
Yes.
Okay,
do.
good. That's
Yep.
one way to do it.
Yep.
That's the only
and
thing I can think.
Where can we find you on OnlyFans?
I don't know what that is. OnlyFans.
Oh yeah, you fly in Nirvana. You don't
When you
need
fly
money.
one paramotor only, right? It's your only fan. Right, that's
Yeah.
Well, OnlyFans is where you show your feet and you make some bucks and stuff. Yeah.
okay.
Sorry,
I've
Jay.
never heard of
Sorry.
that.
I told you he might come on. Do you know what I do?
know. All right. So Martin, if you are you willing to stick around? You can stand up and stretch if you want, but if anybody wants to come in an after show.
Martin, do you have a YouTube page?
I do.
What's
Oh,
your
there's
YouTube?
a sexy shirt right
Is
there.
your name?
You know what, Martin? If
MJHPPG.
I were in wed, I'd take you in a manly fashion.
MJHPPG. And that's on
MJH.
YouTube, or is that
MJHPPG.
Yes.
All right.
I-
MJHPPG.
everybody knows where they can find Kyle Lowe? Hot Buttered Steve, you put any new content out lately? Yes, you did.
No.
Yeah, he just had a movie today.
Yeah, a Kyle O movie.
Yeah.
Come on.
Speaking of movies, I want to go see Avatar.
I
Man,
know.
I love me some Avatar.
3.5 hours. Be ready.
Yeah.
3D.
I'm going to go see it Saturday in Wichita.
Hey,
All right. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight and sticking it out for 2 hours. Wow. Yes, great show, Bill H. Thank you very much. And everybody that's in the chat and watching on
This
regular
is 2
TV.
hours of my life I'll never get back.
Exactly.
But you loved every minute of it.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. And if you ever need to reach out because you don't understand what's going on with the flying and you ain't doing nothing around September, show up to Endless and let's break bread.
Right
Thank you,
on.
Martin.
If we don't see you on the air, we'll see you in the air.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah.
Good
Bye,
call.
safe, everybody.
Good
You
call.
guys stick around. Have a good night, everybody.
All right.
Don't matter. It's all notions of our emotions, of everything we are and what we belong to, how we reach our destiny.